Welcome to the only place where real, raw, and vulnerable conversations happen with IFBB Bikini Pros to give you an inside look at their struggles, strategies, mindset, passions, and all of life beyond the stage. This podcast is made to inspire, motivate, and remind competitors and the average gym goer that even the most extreme lifestyles and elite athletes have their ups and downs. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm your host, Celeste Rains-Turk, and now it's time for the Confessions of a Bikini Pro podcast. Today, we will be talking with a mother of two young boys who coaches clients online to reach their fitness goals while learning how to have a healthy relationship with food, using her own experiences as well as her BS in Dietetics from an ACEND accredited program. Prior to this, she spent 4 years in the U.S. Coast Guard, and she has been competing, I believe, since, is it 2016? I might be wrong on that.
I think that might have been my first one that I did. Yes, 2016.
Awesome. Okay, and then she went on to do 2 shows before earning her pro card at 2019 NPC National Championships, and since then, she has competed in 2 pro shows, including the Minneapolis Pro and the Texas Pro. Welcome to the show, Kristin Wright. How are you doing?
Thank you. I'm great. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, of course. I'm so happy to be talking with you. And I got to start off the episode by asking if there's anything you do or maybe a ritual you have right before your heel hits the stage.
Oh, no. So I probably should have a ritual because that might help. The stage for me is something that I always get super nervous about. I've never been like easy peasy, stride out there, do my thing and walk off. So I usually just want to make sure that I'm not cramping up. And I say a little prayer to myself, usually just like go out there and shine. I guess that would be my ritual. It's just whatever is to let God show through me and me just go out there and not be what I feel like I am in my head, which is just a clustered mess usually while I'm walking out on stage. So yeah, that's my ritual, is just to just go out there and try to let it go and just go through the moments and shine, show my hard work and let other people see that confidence and light in me.
That's awesome. And how did you even get into competing in the first place?
So I always loved how competitors looked, especially in the bikini division. I just bodybuilding in general, I'm always real impressed with the dedication it takes for anyone to stick with it. And so I really wanted to do one probably while I was in the Coast Guard, probably a few years before I ever competed. And then I ended up having my first son. And I thought when I was pregnant, I thought, oh, well, there goes that goal. I just thought it was done with. And then after I had him, I was like, you know what? No, I really wanted to do this. I can still do this. I'm going to go after it. So I wanted it really, I think having kids made that feeling of I have to show them that I'll go after my dreams to give them the power to feel like they can go after theirs. So that's what really drew me into it and pushed me to go into prep and to get on stage. But I'm glad I did finally, because then I looked better after having a kid than I did before I had a kid.
Wow. And do you feel like, well, actually, let me just rewind, because you said specifically like when you got pregnant, you thought, well, there goes that goal. But then something shifted in you to say like, no, I want to show them that they can pursue their goals too. So what was it that made you initially feel like there goes that goal?
Because everyone always says that's like growing up. You always hear from, your mom or your relatives. Sometimes, I guess I did, that after kids, your body's way different, and they don't say it in a positive way.
Right.
Like they say it like, better enjoy it before you have kids. And so I had this fear. I wanted to be a mother so bad, but I had this fear of like, what's going to happen to my body after I have kids? And that is a mindset. I think that it's something that's nailed into us, not that it's not true whatsoever. It's all in it's hard. I mean, it's hard work. Your body goes through a lot of changes, but I think I grew to appreciate my body more after having my son, after going through the birth process, and just being like, wow, I really took my body for granted and all the things it does for me and all that it can do. And if it can do this, it can do anything, you know? And so that was the thing that I think really shifted my mind from that negative mindset of there goes my body to my body is amazing. Like it can do anything and let's see what it can do. And that's still kind of my mindset is let's see what it can do. Let's
I
just keep
love
trying and
that.
changing. Yeah.
I think that's so cool how you could like step back and actually be like, no, my body is incredible. Like she supported me in all of this and literally brought life in the world rather than being like, oh, she did this and now she's ruined.
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, and I see how people can go that way because right after you have your kid, you look way different. I mean, that's your uterus is still, it's still large. It hasn't shrunk all the way back down to its normal size. So you look in the mirror and you might be like, whoa, no one warned me about this. But at the same time, it was a process, it wasn't like an immediate, oh, wow, I can do anything. It was like, it just took time to really just appreciate and think hard on, about myself and my body. And I think that really, like after taking a step back and realizing, I breastfed too. So it's like, wow, my body's even giving life, it gave life and now it's like helping sustain life. And, and then when finally I was like, okay, it's time for me to start feeling good about my body and how I feel and look too. And so it was a slower, I think it was about a year. It was right after my son turned 1 that I competed. So it was a year process of me just kind of taking little steps here and there, but it all came to it all was mentally healing for me.
It sounds like it. It sounds like it really changed your perspective on your body as well as just like the ability of women post baby.
Right. Yeah, it did for sure.
Did you ever struggle with your identity as a mom and like how you should be or you shouldn't be?
I think I might have at first. I think just like I just talked about the process of that, like everything is kind of a mental process, but it's all you look that thought in the face and then you have to kind of like pick it apart from there and rationalize and realize and instead of just being like, oh, well, that's the truth, your initial thoughts or whatever you've learned. So, okay, I just forgot the question. I started going off.
If you ever struggled with your identity as a mom or like
As a
how you
mom.
should or shouldn't be.
Yeah. I'd say like how you dress and what you do was something that really, I mean, I was young when I had my first son. I just turned 34. I was 27. So it's been a while. And not that young, but still young and still learning. And I didn't, I thought moms don't dress a certain way. It was all stuff that I had been taught, and that was just, it wasn't something that was true. It was just something that I had been taught. And, so not dressing a certain way, not doing certain things was something that was in the back of my head, but I think it was too hard for me to try to be someone that I wasn't, or to try to act like someone I wasn't. And I think you just kind of learn along the way, like the best thing I can do for me and for my kids is to just be myself and to show up authentically wherever I am.
Yes. And that seems like such a consistent theme for you. And I definitely want to explore that further. But before I take it to that next place, I was wondering how bodybuilding has actually supported you as a mom and committing to that dream helped you in that realm of your life.
I would say it's helped because it's given me something for me. It's something that I can do that doesn't take away so much from my kids either. Because yes, I compete, but I don't compete as often as I would like to, honestly. Because I don't make trips that often for sure. There's not that many around me usually. So I don't make that many trips. But then when it comes to competing, it's really just your daily lifestyle, and this is something that you love, like going to the gym or eating healthy. It's not a task. It's something I enjoy. So my kids enjoy going to the gym with me. I have a time limit. I don't do 2 a days, but I have the time that my kids can be there with me and they enjoy playing with other kids at the gym. I get to get my workouts in and then I come home. And then even cardio, I can take them out to parks and go for walks and stuff. So I just try to make it something that it's still giving to them and it's still not taking away time from them, but it is something that I love and that I thoroughly enjoy. And I don't have a lot of things that I think are mine or, that are for me. So I think that bodybuilding gives me that. It also helps me be able to help other people because that's part of what I want to do in life. And being able to put myself out there lets other people see me, put myself out there, and then helps me get more connections with people that I can help.
That's amazing. And I love your intention there, like seeing it as something that benefits you in supporting others, whether it's your family or it's future clients or it's the people who follow you. Like it can definitely make a difference. And
thank you.
Yeah. And you had mentioned that you have found like really like yourself through this, and you've been able to do what makes you happy, and you've owned up to and allowed yourself to just be who you are rather than trying to be like somebody else. And I think in this sport and in life, and especially among women, like there is that comparison and there's that maybe judgment comparing to other people's photos or progress or life or relationships. So how have you been able to embrace who you are without comparison? Or maybe how have you overcome the desire to compare?
So I think that when I first started competing, like the first show I did, there's like hashtags for the show and I would click on it and go see, who looks like they might be in bikini, who looks like they might be 5'8", like who might I be against? And it took up, not only did it take up time that I could have been using for something productive, but it would get in my head and make me question myself or make me compare myself to somebody else. And it took me realizing that that was not doing me any good, to really step back and be like, why did I waste my time doing that? That was my first competition. And I showed up and the girls that I even saw, the few that did tag or hashtag the competition became my friends, sitting back there with them. They weren't even in my height class. And the girls I just realized what a community it could be too. And a lot of people that are competing have the same kind of mindset as I did. And it just made me start seeing them as all friends, whether they saw me that way or not. I saw them as friends that have been through hard things. So many people that go into bodybuilding have been through hard things and found like solace in bodybuilding or working out, and hearing some of their stories and exchanging stories, because it was during a hard time in my life at that point. It was just real eye-opening. And so from there, it's still something you have to consciously tell yourself, oh, you're comparing yourself right now. You need to stop, it's easy to do, but it's not productive. It eats you alive. You cannot look like somebody else. You can only look like your best version of you. And so spending time even trying to see what you're going to compete against is just a waste. It's a complete waste of mental energy, of time, of progress. Complete waste.
Absolutely. And it's like, you don't know how people are going to look in person. And you also like by investing all that time and energy into trying to figure that out, you're taking away from other things you could be doing. Like the 10 minutes of scrolling on Instagram, trying to see other competitors could be used to meditate or visualize your success or,
right.
Go the extra mile. So are there other mental drains that you think people should be aware of or athletes should be aware of in this sport?
I definitely think there are quite a few that could be, it just depends on how you approach it as far as other people go, as far as not giving yourself grace when it comes to, let's say you have your kid's birthday party or something and you want to go and I don't know, I'm going off topic here. I was going to say, if you have something to eat at the birthday party, and then some people will just, that's how a lot of eating disorders happen. Cause they're like, oh no, I'm on prep. I shouldn't have had a bite of cake, or shouldn't, like it just goes, it can go so bad. Which is why I just feel like, people that are competing should be doing it not for anybody else but themselves. And if they're doing it for them, they should only be focused on them. And at the same time, perfect, I don't believe in perfect. I don't believe you can do anything completely perfect. I think giving yourself grace and realizing that small things aren't the end of the world, and not letting that become something that is a drain, that you then have this fear of food, or fear of missing a cardio session. People can develop this fear of not doing everything they're supposed to do, and that they've destroyed all progress. And I just don't think that's true. I think that if you can be mentally strong enough to realize, like, that's okay, get right back on the horse, keep going after your goals, that you learn to give yourself grace, and that keeps you from getting that drained, emotional and physical feeling that you can get in bodybuilding.
Definitely. And you've said in the past that, like, failure is the mother of success. So have there been times when you've failed, or you maybe thought you were failing, or you thought that you had that all or nothing mentality and you weren't perfect and therefore not good enough? And how did you learn from those things?
I think that when I wrote that, which I forget who I was quoting, but I think I learned to appreciate my failures. Like, I don't know at what point, I don't know if I really felt like a failure, but I took a step back and realized those moments that, if you don't win first place, or you don't get the outcome you were hoping for. I've learned that every time that happens, like, I learn from that. I get better from that. I learn how to improve. And if you're not failing, you're not trying. You have to try, and you have to put yourself out there to figure out what works for you and what doesn't work for you. And then that's the only way that you can change it. If you never try, you don't figure out what you can do to better yourself. So I don't know if that answered your question, but yeah, I think that failure is such a huge part of life for all of us. No one gets by without failing if they're trying to do anything. And that itself, if you're not trying in anywhere, is the worst failure, in my opinion, that I don't want to ever have. So I like to remind myself that even failing is not really a failure. It's just it's a stepping stone. It's a block, and a lesson. And everything that has been bad in my life, or that has felt like a failure, definitely made me become a better person and gave me a better life, for being able to realize what I needed to change, or what I needed to make better.
Yeah, I really like that perspective, because it's like failure is really just proof that we're making attempts.
Right.
And we can't expect to be really, really good at something without first, like, learning how to be good at it. And that's sometimes a messy process.
Right. And you'll see people, like, and that's the thing, people are worried about people laughing at them, or being, like, oh, they failed, or pointing out their failure to others or to them. And that breaks my heart for a lot of reasons, because it's so common. And I want those people to know, like, no, that's good. It's good. You put yourself out there. You tried. You gave it your best effort. Now, reconfigure your plan and try again. Like, you have to fail. Was it Michael Jordan quote? You have to, I'm not going to even try to quote it because I'll mess it up. But, you have to fail so many times before you can succeed once.
Absolutely. And it's a blessing. Like you said, we have to appreciate the failures, because that's where we're learning. And with this sport, I've learned so much over the years. And, you know, I can sometimes look back and like, oh, if only I knew that when I first started. But like in reality, it's like I didn't know, and that was okay. Because if I had known, then I would have been like, I would have been stunted in my growth, probably because I wasn't able to see like new ways to improve or get better. And
Right.
I think there's like things that a lot of us learn the hard way as athletes. And I think one of the things you had maybe posted about or shared was that you learned to like really rest and give yourself like breaks or vacation. So since embracing that mentality more, how has it influenced the way you show up or even view progress and commitment in this sport?
Well, I don't know how it's shifted it, but I think that it's helped me because I feel like some people don't think you take competing seriously if you're not always on. And I think all of us have a different definition of being always on. And for me, always on is always trying to improve what I want to improve or to be heading towards the look I want to go after. But with that, I know that I need to give myself grace and I need to give myself life as far as just not stressing, not tracking, not worrying. I'm not saying I'm go out and binge eat. I'm just saying not always logging everything, not always feeling this pressure of what you have to do. It became, my life became so much better. My mental clarity became so much better. And my body responded so much better to having breaks, to not always having the same foods, to not always having, you know, it's kind of like that 80-20 rule. Like even on my preps, I don't, until the last 8 weeks or so, really cut out everything, that would necessarily, some people might consider unhealthy. Because I think it's good for you to just kind of not put that mental stress on yourself. I think that's helped me not develop any eating disorders or a bad relationship with food. It's something that for me, like I never wanted my kids to know I was dieting. I never wanted them to think I couldn't have something with them. So if my kids tried to give me a bite of their food or something or really wanted me to try it, I'd just try it, whether I'm on prep or not on prep, because it was something I didn't want them to see and to think, oh, you know, mom's dieting again. Because I didn't know if it would mess with them and their relationship with food. And even though that was what really pushed me to not do that anymore, I think it saved me in a lot of ways too.
Totally. It seems like you were really intentional about that and wanted to like protect not just yourself and your view of food, but also theirs.
Yeah, because it's so easy to think, you know, donuts are bad for you and this is going to make you fat and you're going to lose all your progress. It's so easy to feel that way. But the truth is you could have a donut and you're going to be okay. You're not going to everything up. Yeah,
exactly. And you have to be able to have those associations with foods, all foods that are positive. And the only way we do that is by exposing ourselves or allowing ourselves to have it in all settings, not just when we're binging or we're about to like have a craving or we're emotional or whatever. Like those all usually become negative associations, but we can have a positive relationship with all foods.
And I think understanding that to another level, and that's the thing, people just don't know. Like, that's why I love teaching other people about it, because people just don't know. They're not educated and they don't teach this stuff in school unless you go to college for it. And even then it's like minimal. But they don't teach you about, like, I remember growing up and my mom would tell me peanut butter was a good source of protein, which yes, it has protein, but it's mostly fat. So you just grow up learning what your family teaches you or what your friends teach you. And I think something that's so important to realize is like learning where you could have vitamin deficiencies, you know, figuring out why you have these cravings, why you have this, and being able to really learn your body. And then if it's just something that you like, you're not deficient in anything, you just really like chocolate and you want to have some chocolate, then I think those people should learn it's in moderation. You know, you can, if you give yourself a little bit of what you're wanting, you'll find yourself craving it a lot less. And it really steers you clear from like a bad road you could go down when it comes to your relationship with food.
Yes, I think that knowing like what your body needs as well as like what foods can provide you really gives a different perspective, much like what
Yeah.
you experienced with your pregnancy to giving birth and becoming a mom, like your view of your body shifted. And I think the same thing can happen with food when we choose to recognize like their value to us, whether that's
Yeah.
nutritionally, socially, culturally, goals wise. So I actually would like your perspective on the competitor life as a dietitian, because I think there's certain times in the prep life where we're getting low on macros, or maybe we're in the building season and we have a lot more foods to choose from or could fill our macros with. So how do you go about choosing foods you incorporate into your macros, and what do you think about when you are choosing foods?
So I choose foods that make me feel best. And that is different for everyone, you know? And I try to get nutritionally dense foods. But for me, like my body responds better to no dairy or no refined carbs. A lot of people's bodies respond best to that. And I don't really limit, especially like on a building season, I don't limit myself on my amount of vegetables, or
Mhm.
or fruit, or I make sure I have enough protein and stuff. But that's what I enjoy and what my body feels best and I have the most energy with. Um, so as far as growing season goes, um, I just think that that's best for me, is to not be so strict on myself, but to fill myself with all things that I respond best to, my body responds best to. When it comes to prep, um, it's funny because everyone really notices when you're leaning out at the end of your prep, and will compliment you, or they'll think you grew muscles, like they'll
Yes.
think they'll think you got bigger all of a sudden. And what they don't realize is you've had those muscles. You're just finally showing them off. They're coming to the surface, and that's when people think you are the most healthy or that you look so great. And I say all the time, I'm like, yeah, but that's when you're like the most unhealthy.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. And so I view it, and that's why I think it's such a sensitive thing, because so many people, even that do preps and that compete, they start to think that that's them healthy too, that prep
Mhm.
look. And it's like, no, like you don't want to stay that lean. You don't want to keep that look forever, because not only are you not very healthy right now, but you're going to start feeling like crap. You're going to feel real bad real soon, the longer you stay at that low amount of intake and a high amount of output. Um,
Absolutely.
so so I don't think it's best for me, and I only diet down and will up my cardio towards the end of prep, because and then as soon as it's over, I'm right back into reversing. I've only done two competitions and they still weren't back to back. They're a few months apart, like in the same year. And that year was this past year, and it burnt me out because I did two preps back to back.
Yeah.
So yeah, it takes a huge toll on you, huge toll on your body, which is why it's so important to learn your body, to learn where you're healthy, what's good for you, and then to try to get back to that as soon as possible in the best way you can, in the healthiest way you can. But yeah, I loathe being super lean. I don't really love being very, very lean, because I just feel terrible and I'm cranky. I'm not
Mhm.
not as fun to be around, and my lifts don't feel as good. And for me, it's all about feeling good in your body, feeling good in the gym, feeling strong and energetic. And that's what I try to fill my nutrition side with, is foods that will help me feel stronger and feel more energy throughout the day. I don't want to walk around feeling lethargic and miserable.
Yeah, especially when you're already asking so much of your body in prep. It's like you want to be choosing foods that actually make you feel like vibrant and energized or sustain you for longer periods of time so your mind can focus on other things.
Yes, very important, which is also why, some prep diets are so crazy. They're so crazy. Like just totally cut out everything, that there's no way that those people feel good at all.
Right. Especially from like a micronutrient perspective, like we can't deny that if if you're in such a deficit, like I'm in a really big deficit right now. And I'm like, okay, when I get refeed macros, I can like incorporate more foods because
Right.
there's obviously more room. So therefore I'm getting more micronutrients. But most of the times like in my deficit, it's like my fiber is really low. Like there's certain, because you just don't have as much room. And I think this goes back to your point of like, we're not our healthiest at this stage. And if we
Right.
can accept and acknowledge that, and then recognize if we want to value and prioritize our health, that we have to be willing to come out of this phase too.
Yeah.
Then we'll be better off as competitors, because otherwise we'll constantly think we should be looking like our prep selves all the time.
Yeah.
And actually, I like what you said about being your healthy self and not always craving or wanting to be your prep self, because it's painful sometimes too. Like I know if I lay down right now on hardwood, or if I sit down on hardwood, it's like crunch, like it hurt. I don't know if that even makes sense. I can't do the noise, and it's like
Your bones.
Yes, exactly. I'm like, what? And I'm bruising so easy, and it's like, these are the prep feels that a lot of people like, they forget. But then you stand up and you look in the mirror, you're like, I've got these veins, my muscles are popping. But
Right.
it's like a give and take. And I think it's important that if you love the prep and you love the shreds, you must also love the improvement, the recovery, the healing, because this is a lifelong journey if we can allow it to be, by being healthy, right?
Yes. Yes. And I think a lot of people, they get, it's like they're missing the gratification of people commenting on them when when they're reversing, more so than hating how they look or how they feel. They just are like, oh, no one's noticing or complimenting me more. I've had, people that I know that don't want to go to the gym when they're reversing because they were used to being the fit person. And it's like, what?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I don't even know how to respond to that, because it's like, well, you're still the fit person. Like, keep working on your muscles and they'll see you when you do your next prep. It's kind of like a reveal, but it's another, and I always do quotes wrong. So, but it's like, you got to clap for yourself for when no one's clapping for you. Like, you have to know, like, what I'm doing matters, and this is going to push me towards my goals. Yes, no one's going to see it, but eventually they will, and it's like, show up anyways, keep doing what you're doing. Stop worrying. That is the biggest advice I give to any competitor, is stop worrying about anybody else. What they're thinking, what they're saying about you, what they are going to show up looking like, what they're doing. Worry about you, and what can you do to be someone, like, when you show up on stage, you should show up as the person that you wanted to look like, your version of you wanted to look like, not anybody else, not what anyone else said you should show up looking like. It is when you show up and look like what you envisioned yourself looking like, it doesn't matter what place you get, you're going to walk off happy and proud of yourself.
Love that.
And it's so sad when people don't, and they just eat themselves alive, or they give up because they haven't learned to just realize it's not, different judges want different things, different, depending on what athletes show up to compete against you is going to, change the outcome of your placement sometimes. Like, there is no one size fits all, like, cookie cutter look that everyone has to do. It is just about being your best balance and your best self. And then when the stars align, it's going to work out well for you. But you put in the work, you worry about yourself, like, you're never going to feel like you failed, even if you didn't get the outcome you wanted.
Preach it. Yes. Yes. Seriously. Like, this is more validating and rewarding than any trophy or title or anything else could be, because you'll know that every day you showed up for yourself and you honored your commitments and you walked on that stage bringing exactly what you wanted. Therefore, you're walking off that stage knowing not only did you do everything that you set out to do, but you actually liked it and you enjoyed it. So it's like, isn't that what matters most? That's what's going to keep you showing up. And if you keep showing up, the rest will come.
Yep. 100%.
Even Sandy Williamson, she even says, you know, you got to be able to like your body in all of this. And don't commit to this if you can't, or if you don't. It's really about like, you got to enjoy it and find what works for you. And I think a lot of people live their life by shoulds. I should be doing this as a competitor because of what they see, or maybe again going back to the earlier point about comparison. So I always like on this podcast hearing the different approaches, because it's a great reminder that there's many ways to get to the result that you want. And I was hoping you could share with us like what your approach to training and nutrition looks like for you personally, and how you established what works best for you.
During prep or just all the time?
Yeah, year round.
Okay. For me, I always want to, and this is the problem with me and being bikini competitor, is I always want to be bigger. I always want my legs bigger, my glutes bigger. And I enjoy, it takes so much time and so much effort. And so I gotta be honest, I've definitely had years where I've like pulled back on training quads or, to try to give a look that I thought would be more or better for bikini or what the judges wanted. But I'd say as of lately, especially last year, I like to just keep trying to get stronger, and progressive overload, keeping my protein high, even when my calories drop or when they're higher, my protein stays high all the time. And I lift hard. I'm not always there long at the gym, but when I'm there, like, I'm not talking in between my sets. If you come and try to talk to me, I'm going to start doing my set while you're talking to me. Like, I don't stop. Because that's my me time. I think I've told you that, like, that's my time for me to focus on me. And so I love to train hard in the gym, and I make sure I get my protein in. But as far as nutrition goes, I just feel my best when I'm having a lot of fruits and vegetables, when I'm not having a lot of dairy or refined carbs. And with my cardio, I really cut that out as far as cardio that I have to do. And this is something that I've really started the past year or two, is just when I'm not prepping, I don't do a lot. But I'm very active. Like, I'll take my kids on hikes or my dog on walk every night. I stay moving, but I don't have like, I have to do this much time on the treadmill or Stairmaster every day. I don't have planned cardio. I just make sure that I move for the day. And that way, when I do preps and have planned cardio, my body responds way better and I lean out a lot faster because it's not already used to doing all of that cardio. So I never have to do a high amount of cardio, even when I'm on prep. I'm never doing morning fasted cardio and then additional cardio later. And I don't think you should have to. If you like it and enjoy it, that's great. But I think that if you get in the active, like, if you can make that part of your lifestyle, just being active, just keep moving. That's good for your heart. That's good for your body. That's good for fat loss. It's good for everything, just to be walking everywhere. And then when you do throw in intervals or high intensity intervals or some more steady state cardio, your body will just shed the fat that much faster because it's not used to it. So I think that kind of sums up what I do for my nutrition for prep and off season. But I usually still track, or I had up until this year. And I think I mentioned I kind of got burnt out doing 2 shows back to back, but it was during a move too. So I had a lot going on my last show that completely burnt me out. But I realized I needed a break from tracking. And usually in my off season, I weigh more. I put on more weight, and that's when I am tracking, and it's intentional, but some of it's not always some little extra. Yeah. But
the life extras.
Right. Right. But I haven't been tracking as much this summer. Something new I'm trying with myself. just because we've had vacations, both kids have been home from school. And I just wanted the mental break of wanting to log everything. And I've actually, my body's responded really well. So I think also giving yourself those breaks and not feeling like you always have to track everything is another thing. Because the way our stress, when we stress ourselves out, our body responds to stress a lot worse than it would a donut. Like stress is the worst thing for you. And that pressure of how much or weighing everything. Okay, I had a bite, but how many ounces was it? Like that pressure, taking that off. And I didn't even mean to, and this is, people will hate me for saying this, but I didn't even mean to lean out. Like I just started leaning out a lot faster by having bites of things I wanted, but still eating my healthy meals full of mostly vegetables and lean meat. And it just wasn't super structured. Like my diet hasn't been super structured, but it's still filled with protein, lean protein. And yeah, I was surprised. So I'm sharing it for anyone that's tracked for too long. Sometimes your body needs the break, and that doesn't mean the break of like, go eat whatever you want and eat trash all the time. It's like the break of just letting yourself learn to kind of eat intuitively and to eat when you're hungry, but stop when you're not, and just try to fill yourself with things that are good for you. But if you want to bite of something that's not necessarily great, or a glass of wine or something, then have it and let yourself just decompress. I think that's what I'm learning. I'm learning that in breaks, and not trying to make up for a missed week of workouts by dropping my calories and upping, not trying to make up for things, has been, my body's responded beautifully. And I'm thankful to my body for that.
I love that mentality. And I'm so happy you just shared that, and sharing your experience and how you're willing to experiment with yourself based on like what you've been feeling and stress and what you want from your life. Because I think a lot of the times when people fall into those really negative cycles or patterns or judgments of themselves, or being critical, which, of course increases stress, it's because they feel like they have to control it, or they have to be a certain way, or they're not allowed to. And it's like, if you just let yourself be, this is something I always tell my clients, and I don't do nutrition and training coaching, I do mental health work. And something I always tell them is, when you give yourself the freedom to choose, that opens the door for mindfulness, and mindfulness increases our self-esteem. And if we have higher self-esteem, it's because we're creating the opportunity to make better choices for ourselves. It's when we limit our choices and we put like shackles on what we can do, that's when there's that judgment or that criticism or feeling trapped. But as soon as we give ourselves the freedom to choose, like, that pressure goes out the window, because we're just like, oh, I'm choosing this. It doesn't have to feel forced or restrictive.
I love that. That's so true. So true.
Yeah.
That's where so much negative, like the mindsets, the judgments on others, on yourself, it definitely comes, like you just said, from those limits that you start putting on yourself. Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah. It's like, if we can really be considerate of what we want in our life, and then we make peace with wanting that, you're not likely to then end up binging or restricting yourself or trying to punish yourself and fall into all those things, because you'll actually be acting in a place of congruency. And a lot of people think they need more control. They just need to be in more congruency with what they want. And it sounds like you've established that for yourself. Like, you're finding, what's my best approach? What's my best lifestyle? And I want to get your perspective on this as a professional in your field, on the whole intuitive eating thing. Cause I think people can be at risk when they're like, oh, I'm just going to like say, I'm screw it to the meal plans and the macro tracking, I'm just going to start intuitive eating. And I'm always like, you have not listened to your body for the last 9 months of your entire prep, and you think you're just going to eat intuitively. So I want to hear like your perspective on intuitive eating, and how you have been able to kind of like tap into that for yourself, or maybe how you help clients do that.
Well, it's definitely been a trial and error process for me. Because I've done intuitive eating on some other off seasons that, like I said, when I gained a little extra, even though some was intentional, but and I learned to appreciate that too. But I think the difference this time is it all has to do with your mental state and your awareness of your own body. If you are not happy with where you are, if you have not learned to embrace yourself in all different stages, if you're still struggling with your own judgments on yourself or on others, because if you're judging other people, you're probably still judging yourself, whether you're saying it out loud or not. I think that if you're still doing that, like you might not be in a good spot to do intuitive eating, because you really have to, especially if you're like an emotional eater, or, if you're angry or sad or whatever, and you go for food. That's been me. And that hasn't panned out well for my intuitive eating because I'm thinking, if you're an emotional eater, you might be thinking, well, I want to eat right now, but you're not able to step back and realize this is your emotions, not your stomach pains. You're not hungry.
Right.
So, being able to do that, to be able to be so self-aware that you can take a step back and realize what you need and when you need it. That's when you, I think, can do it successfully. But I think it takes working on all of those other things first and getting to that point before you can really, you really need to know your body to do intuitive eating and for it to, I think, pan out well for you. And you have to be able to be willing to say no to things maybe you like them, like maybe you like certain foods, but you don't feel like you need to have it every time it's placed in front of you. If you really want it and you really want it, you can have some. But I feel like when you're not in a good spot, a lot of times after you've been restricting for a long time, especially, anytime you see something that you weren't letting yourself have, you might overdo it as opposed to just having a bite and being satisfied, or a half piece or something like that. So I would say that that's the biggest difference, is finally getting to a point with myself where I know when I need to do other things to fill the void or whatever is bothering me. And then I know when I'm actually hungry or when I actually want something. I think that sums up the difference and when you should and shouldn't do intuitive eating.
Yeah, I agree. And like, I think intuitive eating, what I love the most about what you said is the trial and error piece. Like, and naturally by committing to something like intuitive eating, you have to be willing to learn.
Right.
And that can come with various consequences: weight loss, weight gain, energy decrease, cravings, it's like, it can come with a lot. So if you're not willing to like commit to the trial and error, it's probably not even the best time to consider it and first explore why can't we commit to that?
Right. Yeah, I agree.
So when you look over your journey and the process you've had, are there things that you do as a competitor that you wouldn't maybe encourage lifestyle clients to do?
I guess it depends on the prep necessarily. Like some preps I've had to drop faster with calories or do more cardio that I would never want a lifestyle client. I feel like you should never be starving as a lifestyle client. You shouldn't be. Like there's no point for you to be starving during the day. You can put yourself at a comfortable deficit that will leave you feeling satisfied throughout. A lot of clients I've had have even been like, this is too much food. And I'm like, I promise it's not. But they make the servings and it's a lot of vegetables. It's a lot of like low calorie, nutrient dense foods that keep them full. But, they should never be hungry is the point I'm trying to make. And when you're a competitor, you have to be hungry. You have to get hungry. If you're not hungry towards the end, you're probably not ready. Maybe that's wrong. Maybe there are some people that are still feeling full and eating full meals, but I've never experienced a prep where I have not been very hungry, towards at least the last month. So
I literally have never not been hungry on a prep. I didn't even know if people, I'm sure there's people who, I know there's people who like just eat all the time and have to fill out in a bunch, but I'm not one of those.
Those lucky people.
But then I'm like, would I want to be eating that much all the time?
Yeah. The grass is always greener. They probably
yes.
because I'm always, I mean, I'm one of the type, like I'm always hungry too. So if I have a client that's like, it's too much food, I'm like, no way. Just, well, I'll say, you don't have to eat it all. If you don't,
Yeah,
if your stomach is full, you don't have to eat it all. It's just there if you want it. But in my head, I'm like, how could you not still be hungry?
totally.
How could you not? I will eat a whole bag of green beans if I can fit it in during a prep.
Same.
Just to try to still to feel full. So those are things that's a big difference too. There's lots of things like that I would never have a client do, but for prep, it gets weird. It's like, yeah, put some Splenda and cinnamon on your cucumbers if you want to.
Right. But like a lifestyle client probably wouldn't even have a reason to do that.
I wouldn't suggest that. Right. I would never suggest basically anything that I really don't like about prep. I would never want somebody to willingly do because there's no point. But I mean, there's so many people that just want to look like prep ready. And that's another talk I've had with a lot of clients. Like they want to look like they're going to step on stage, but they don't want to do a competition. And I'm like, well, let's talk more about that.
Mm-hmm.
Let's dive more into that because there's a certain point where I'm not going to want to put you past this. It's not healthy for you. And I don't think you're going to like it either. But I think if you want to look that lean, I think it takes doing it once to then realize, oh, like, this isn't everything I thought it was going to be.
Absolutely. And it's like, I think competitors sometimes make it look easy because we've either been doing it for a while or we knew what the lifestyle would require, or we kind of knew what to expect, or it just becomes lifestyle. And then when you take someone who wants to look like a competitor, but doesn't know really what goes into it because it's been minimized by competitors, because like, we know it's a big commitment, but we're not like outwardly always like, wow, this is so much, because it's just normal,
Right.
So I think it's like when they realize like there's a lot more that goes into it, it's kind of like, oh, okay, yeah, maybe I don't need that. And that's okay. And also when they realize competitors aren't always like that too.
Right. I think it's good to have, especially anyone that wants to compete or doesn't want to compete. But I think you have to be able to be faithful in the small things first.
Mm-hmm.
And before, if you want to succeed in competing at all, like you need to be okay with a slow process, a healthy, slow process to get you closer to that goal. And if you can't do that, then I would never recommend you throwing yourself into a prep. And so a lot of people that they want me to give them extremes or do something crazy to lean them out fast. And I'm like, yeah, I could tell you what to do, but it would be terrible for you. you're going to feel bad. Like it's not healthy. I don't want to make you need to go into the hospital or something when this is not even, like you just want to get that lean. But if the clients that I've had that have stayed and committed and just gone through the process, taking the time, I mean, it's not like it's not necessarily a slow process, but the healthy way to do it. They have blew my mind. Some of them look like they could compete. They could step on stage because they just keep going because they get addicted to and that's what's so great about it, I think, is like you just start to realize, oh, this is fun. I think that's where a lot of people that compete and stick with competing, like they just find the heart for it. They just love it. And they love seeing what they love the power of this knowledge that they have that they can change whenever they want to. And it's addicting kind of, you just keep wanting to change and grow and you realize you have that power. So it's one of the few things in life that we have some control over. We don't have control over, if we get sick or all those things. And sometimes you can't control, your body has different things going on. But if you're healthy, if you're a healthy individual, then it's something like you have power over. And I think you start to trust yourself more and you start to just grow this confidence in yourself when you realize that through the small, like the slower process and let it become a lifestyle change. And then you don't even think about it anymore. It's just like you just said, it's part of your life. You don't really feel like it's a huge thing. when it comes to eating healthy and working out and being active.
Yes. And people will be like, oh, I want it to be easy, or so-and-so makes it look so, like Miss Bikini Olympia makes it look so easy, like she never struggles. It's like, there were probably some things that went into this process over the years before it,
Right.
it's like she found what was best for her. And we have to be willing to do that. And as athletes or professionals or in any area of life, it's a requirement to like give that time to yourself and patience. Because if you want it for the long run, you're going to need the patience.
Right. Yeah. And I bet Miss Bikini Olympia struggles too. Like we all do. Nobody has it easy. It's just the people that keep going, that don't give up, that know what they want in life. Like they make it look that way, but it's because they're so sure. They're sure of what they want, and they're willing to do whatever they need to do.
Oof, I love that. That's so true. And let's actually talk about your passion in dietetics, because I think that really separates you from others. But I'd like to hear like how you personally think having your degree in dietetics separates you as a coach, or maybe sets you apart in the industry, and really what inspired you to get that degree.
Well, it's kind of unrelated to competing, even though,
Interesting.
so I was a personal trainer before I went into the Coast Guard, and I loved helping people change and learn about nutrition and change their bodies. And I just really thrived there, that even when I was in the Coast Guard, I was helping people pass their PT test or writing them diets, like just for fun.
That's awesome.
And that's just really that's my passion, and I've learned that through the more things I do, that's still where people come to me, or where I end up helping in that field. But it was my grandparents getting sick, and just realizing all the different foods that you consume, how they can tie into either helping you heal from a disease or preventing a disease, or how they could make it come on faster or make it worse. And so that's really what pulled me into dietetics, is like, wow, food is so powerful in your life. And I had no idea. Like so many people have no idea. If you have something that runs in your family, you should be looking into preventative food and what food to avoid, because it can play, like how it plays a role in how you feel. And why I talk about how foods make you feel. It's because your body and the more I learn, the more I'm amazed and in love with my body, and from having kids on, that's where it started. And from there, it's just continued to grow. But like you need to be able to feed yourself the things that make you feel good. If you don't feel good, your body's trying to warn you usually, that this is not good for you. This is not going to help you. And so anyways, that's what pulled me into dietetics, was just to be able to find, and vitamins and minerals and everything that can help you either heal or prevent something from ever happening. Obviously, life's unpredictable and something can happen at any point. But I think that that's another like tool that most people should know. It's something that I want more people to know. And that's what really pulled me into it, because I want to teach more people that, things like that can really change their lives and their children's lives. And but as far as competing and what sets me apart, I don't know if anything sets me apart, because when it comes to competing, it's still kind of the same. It's still, calories going lower, cardio going higher. I'd say the biggest difference, I mean, I let clients work in some different foods that you might not see on a regular cookie cutter diet sometimes, depending on their age or what, a lot of different factors and that comes into that. But I think for me, I stress myself with wanting to make sure that I teach them as much as I can for them to not walk away with a bad relationship with food or their bodies. And I don't know if everyone gets that. I hope they do. I hope that all coaches do that for their clients. But I worry, especially when I've had younger girls on, like, I don't want to be the start of something that makes them hate their body. I want them to learn the power that they can have in this knowledge on how to heal their bodies, how to grow their bodies, how they want them to look. There's just, it seems that it's one extreme or the other. and competing. It seems like that you've either figured it out or it's something that's completely detrimental to some people. And I guess my heart is just broken for the people that have bad experiences or are taught wrong, and they just walk away feeling confused and lost and hate their bodies and don't, that's really where my heart is pulled for when it comes to competing and dietetics.
That's really awesome. I like that you're able to take like what you hope people get out of it and apply it, because on one hand, you recognize how important food is to prevention of disease or illness or difficulty, but you also recognize the potential difficulty if we don't have a healthy relationship with food, or we're not comfortable in our skin, like that can have a lasting impact as well. So finding that middle ground where it's not, you have to be this superhuman person who only eats XYZ, but it's about teaching people they can have really like almost, I don't know if balance is the right word, but it sounds like kind of showing them that it doesn't have to be so black or white.
Yeah. And that came from years of, since I've been, like I mentioned, I was a personal trainer before. So my view of my own body and my relationship with my own body has changed so much since kids, since everything. And I just feel like I finally figured it out after so long. And in the areas that I struggled is where I just really want to shout from the rooftops on how to help others out of it. Because I've definitely been there too. And especially with even tying into talking about people comparing themselves to others, there comes, people telling you what you should and shouldn't look like. And I remember when I first started competing, like reaching out to other bodybuilders or friends. And of course, there's one or two good opinions, but most of them were terrible, making me feel, you're too this, you're too that, you're not, that's not what they're going to look for. And it was all in my head, it really got to me. And it took me a lot of like self-reflection and time alone and meditating to figure out, I don't need to ask anyone's opinion or hear anyone's opinion unless it's somebody that has walked where I've walked, or like is someone that's, I want to be where they're at, besides that, like everyone else's opinion you shouldn't ask them. You shouldn't, especially when it comes to your body. I know we compete and we are literally putting ourselves in front of judges to judge our body, but that doesn't mean we want or should listen to everyone else's opinions on our bodies.
Yeah, especially because at the end of the day, we're the ones who have to live with ourselves.
Right.
So I actually was really curious about this because you seem to be very confident in who you are. It seems like you know what you deserve, you know what you're worthy of and what to expect in your life and how you'll live. And it seems like you're in a relationship that supports this as well. And I was just hoping maybe you could share like how you've evolved into this woman and what you would tell maybe your younger self to support her in figuring that out.
Well, this could be a real deep answer.
I'm up for that.
A real long answer. I'm going to try to short story it. But my husband, or my boyfriend now, was my husband. We were divorced for 4 years. He was father of my first son, and now we're back together. And yes, he's very supportive and my best friend, and he's always been my best friend, but we both have grown so much and changed so much over the years and for the better, that we really just have each other's backs. And I think I've grown through all of that too. Being on my own for a little while with my son, and then just a whole lot of other life changes through those years. It forced me to evaluate everything about myself, about how I felt about others, about what I was thinking about, everything. And it made me realize what mattered most to me. I feel like when you hit rock bottom, it is like the perfect time to realize what you really want out of life and what you need to do to get it. And what matters to you. And I took the things that mattered to me, which at the top of my list are my kids and I thought about who I wanted to be for me and for them. And I think from there, it's definitely, my kids are a huge part of it. Because I think about like the negative mindset. I even heard sometimes I have the best parents in the world. But even hearing my mom talk negative about herself growing up made me question myself, even though she would compliment me all day, I would think, well, I think you're pretty, so why don't you feel good about yourself, or I think you look good. And that kind of messed with me. And that made me think, you know what? I don't ever want my kids to hear me say a negative thing about myself. And I probably did say negative things about myself up until that point. And I can joke on myself or roast myself all I want, but I do not mean anything negative about myself and say it out loud. Because I want them to not, I don't want that to be a pattern for them. And in that process of not like intentionally not saying anything negative about myself, my whole mindset changed. It's crazy. Like cause your body hears you, like when you're thinking these thoughts and allowing yourself to keep saying these things to yourself, like you're like setting it in stone almost rather than changing it or, fixing your mindset. I think so it really started by I just decided like, I'm not going to say another bad thing about myself. If someone says something negative about me, I'm going to try my best to ignore it. I'm not going to give it any of my energy. And that's how I've lived. And I felt so free in the process that I'll never go back. Like it literally freed me. And I hope and I pray that frees my kids too, from ever having self-doubt or being insecure about themselves for, things that they should never feel that way about.
Wow, that's beautiful. And now tell us more about the relationship, how you went from married to divorced to dating.
Well, we got divorced based on some things that he had done. And I think that, again, I think I mentioned before, like my mindset from what I grew up and heard, what I felt like I had to do was go, and I had to leave, and I took my son and I left and I went to be by my family. And then I started dating another guy, and I ended up accidentally having my second son, and I tried to make that relationship work for a while. And it just didn't. And so then I was single again with 2 kids for about a year. And I dated around a little bit, and I dated some great guys, that I had great conversation with, and some not so much, but, I just realized like the whole time that I was divorced, he was still my best friend. We still talked, we still caught up, and he never stopped making an effort to be close. He moved close by for our son. And anyways, he's just my best friend. And I think I realized that a lot of things that I thought mattered more didn't. I don't know if without getting into too much detail. Yeah. But I think it's another one of those things that I was like, are my needs being met? Am I happy? Do I feel supported and loved? And like, I have my best friend with me. Is he adding to my life? When we started dating again, these are questions I had to ask myself to get past the past. It was kind of one of those things like, I can't say no to any of them, like, or I can't, he does all those things. And my life has been so much better. Like the relationship's been great, and my whole perspective on so many things in all areas of life has changed, because at the end of the day, it's who's there for you, who loves you, who supports you, who's making your life better. And those are the people you should keep around, and you should give them grace and compassion and try to learn. If people do hurt you, I think you should learn what hurts they've had in their life that have caused those pains. So we started dating a year after that, and we've been back together now for 2 years, and thriving and living with our family. We moved to King George, further away from where we were. So I'm very happy with that. And having a partner that that really just that laughs with you, that supports you, that, you know, doesn't take things so seriously. Um, just having that relationship is so important. And I think that not getting caught up on this ties into with competing too, getting caught up on what society says you should and shouldn't do is such a big thing to get away from in all areas of your life. Like that has helped me. And that's another thing that has helped me feel confident in my own decisions, because if I'm happy, it doesn't matter, what other people say. If I feel happy about my life and where it's going, it makes me more confident in my decisions, knowing that I'm doing what's best for me and my family.
So hearing you talk about this, I'm like,
I know.
No, because
like be a long podcast.
Some of it's like cryptic, and I'm like, I want to talk to you more, because I feel like I'm literally like, I feel like I'm going through a divorce, because I was with my boyfriend for 7 years and we just broke up. Like, yeah, but I'm walking away, and I'm listening to you talk, and I'm like, how, like, I'm learning to have the courage to walk away,
Yep.
And I feel that it's the best thing for me right now. And I hear you talking, I'm like, anything is possible, and it is okay to walk away sometimes. And I was hoping, for my own selfish reasons, you could maybe share how that space and that time between actually benefited you as an individual, and then in the future relationship.
Yeah, of course. I needed to walk away when I did. I couldn't have stayed. That wouldn't have made anything better. And I'm glad I did. I don't regret it at all. I don't regret anything. But, and that's what I think is like, in your heart, you feel it, when you got to go, you just know. But, it was the continuous effort and life changes. I mean, that happened. I didn't have any expectations. I would have imagined we'd be back together. And now he's raising, our son and my other son just as his own. Never would have imagined that.
Wow.
But I think that life has a way of showing you things. And I think that taking time, and both growing, and then still like 4 years, we were divorced and not together for 4 years. And we were still friends. And when I was single for that year, we still hung out before I started dating him again. And that was during that time that I think I realized, and I don't know if that would have happened if we didn't have a kid. If I would have had the courage or want to even see, I probably would have just wrote him off because of what I thought, or how I think things are supposed to be. But during that time, I just realized, he was still my best friend and still the only person that I actually wanted to be in the same house with all the time or be around all the time. I think I also realized how hard that is to find that connection and that friendship. And not that I was like, oh, I'll never find it again. It was like, I realized, oh, I don't want to find somebody else. Like, this is still the person that I love and want to be with, and that I just get along with so well. And that just really supports, like, someone that I know I can grow with through life, that's not going to cut me off or stop me from achieving anything. He's going to help me. And that's so important. And I think that all of that together it changed things. But I think that when walking away when I did was still the right move, and just not having expectations. I've learned over the years to drop my expectations of others and expect more of myself. And from there, I feel like it's really played out nicely for me. And I'm still surprised by people, they still can surprise me when I don't have high expectations for them. But I'm never disappointed because I don't set high expectations for them. I just set them for myself. If I don't let myself down, then I don't feel disappointed. And then that's kind of where the adding, do they add to your life thing. From there, you kind of add people that add to your life, that work with you and work with your life. And that could be someone new, or it could be someone from your past. Don't write anybody off. I think understanding why someone did something they did is also very important. and understanding their past and their things, even as childhood stuff that can affect you for the rest of your life, that we all grow up different. We all have different past and different experiences. And I think realizing that and having compassion for others, and trying to understand, even if it doesn't mean you have to, it doesn't make it okay, but understanding why people choose to do what they do, plays a huge role in learning compassion and grace for others, and also makes you stop judging. Like, none of us are perfect. None of us do it all right. I don't know if that helps you at all with your answer.
Yes, girl. Oh my God. I feel like we just know that definitely helps. Like, that was the womanly girl chatty advice that I needed, because, or not even advice, but like confirmation, because I do feel like it's like the move to walk away. And I love what you just said, though. You said you only set expectations for yourself, because then you can't be disappointed, because if you do what you say you're going to do. And I just really, really like that. And I think you sharing your journey also puts things in perspective too, where life can be different than maybe we expect, but if we're listening to our heart and we're trusting ourselves, then things will work out.
Yeah, for sure.
So we're going to wrap this episode up, but before I get to your best advice, I wanted to know what you're currently focused on and what you hope to get out of your journey as a competitor.
So, I just turned 34 like a few days ago.
Happy belated.
Thank you. Which gives me one more year before I'm in masters.
That's right.
Which of course I'm thinking about it. So I'd like to, and not that that matters. It doesn't matter at all. I can still, there's a lot of girls that go to the O that are over 35, that have even won. So it's not like it's not something that stops me at all, but I do want to give it, I've decided, I said this a long time ago, that I'd like to give it more this year. I'd like to compete. I'm waiting until 2023, and I'd like to do the most. I told you the most I've ever done was 2 shows in 1 year. Right. I was just doing like 1 a year. So I'd like to try to do more this upcoming year. I'm not sure how many that will be. It will depend on, what I can make work with my family and lifestyle. But so that's my goal with competing, is to give it a good, honest go, to be able to get feedback from the judges and then actually change it, shortly after, not wait a year, show back up. Cause they tend to reward when you make the changes and continue to show up for one season, continue to take feedback, show up. I've seen a lot of competitors climb in placements doing that. So yeah. I'd like to do that this year. And I'm, instead of my usual, hard cuts, now that I've been leaning out unintentionally, I've decided I'm going to kind of coast around this weight and intentionally stay here, and try to come in a little leaner, for my next one. So that's my competition goals. And I'd like to, of course we'd all love to go to the O. So if it happens, it happens. But, if it doesn't, just keep showing up with the look I have in mind, I have in mind for myself this year. And I think it'll be fun. I'd really like to go to the Clash in Florida for my first one this year. Because it seems like it's always a fun show. It's a huge, huge show because the top 10 get checks, I think. So I think all the tough competitors will be there, but I like to go big. So I'm gonna go straight for it. And like I said, you never know, you don't know I can't compare myself to the best unless I show up with the best. So I'm hoping the best show up there.
Absolutely.
Not compare. I used the wrong word. I don't want to compare myself to them, but I'd like to see how I do with them. So that's my plans this year for competing.
That's awesome. Well, I'm excited to see that.
Do you have a prep coming up? I'm trying not to ask
yeah.
You, but you said you were getting low on calories. So
I'm 2 and 3 weeks out. So by the time this episode comes out, my season will probably be done. And I'll be on vacation. But yeah, like 2 weeks out from Sin City muscle contest show, and then 3 weeks out from North American.
Oh, fun. I can't wait I'm going to watch your Instagram.
Thank you. Yeah.
I watch your girl.
I'm so excited. Whatever happens, I'm like, I already beat my last national show look. So I'm stoked. I'm happier. I'm a better competitor this year. And that's like so meaningful to me.
Yes, that is the win. I can't wait to see it though.
Thank you. So let's get your best advice. I know you already mentioned some things earlier as, some key advice, but I'll let you kind of wrap this up and let us know, like, what's your best advice for someone who's never competed before but wants to, and then your best advice for someone on their road to pro.
Okay. For someone that's never competed and wants to, I would say know why. Know your why. And that is because if it is for anyone else but you, don't do it. If it's to get a look that you want, that you think other people will like, or, any other reason like that, that's outside of yourself, I would say don't put yourself through it. But if it's something that's for you that you've wanted to do, on the other end of that, don't let anyone talk you out of it. Don't let anyone's opinion change your mind. Keep going. There's going to be a lot of people that won't understand it. They won't understand you. And you've got to be able to graciously ignore their advice and opinions, because they're going to give it unsolicited. So keep that in mind, but don't let anyone steer you away from it if this is for you and something that you really want to do. And as far as someone on their road to pro, I think the only thing anyone can do is just, and I've said this already, but just keep showing up as your best. Keep thinking about what you want to look like, what you want to come out of your prep, and show up and let the judges decide from there, and don't stop showing up. I mean, if it's something that you love and you love doing it, keep going. If you don't, then sometimes you might need to take a break for a year or something and see like what improvements a lot of people don't take long enough improvement seasons either. I think they're scared to step away, and a lot of the growth and the best changes come from that, and mentally and physically, from giving yourself breaks. And that doesn't mean if you step away from stage for a year that your chances of going pro are gonna stop. So the stage is always going to be there. Is my advice to pros, and to make sure that you are good, or people that want to go pro, make sure you're mentally ready for it, physically you feel ready, and then go. But if not, I mean, just do what you need to do to get yourself right before really chasing that title.
Amazing. Just amazing advice all around. And I want people to be able to thank you for that, as well as like follow you and maybe even work with you. So can you let everybody know how they could do that?
Yes. As I'm trying to think of what my Instagram is. It's my name. It's Kristin Wright. And I think it's _, IFBB Pro. And awesome. I also have my email listed on there as well. DMs get a little sketchy. So if you'd like to work with me, please email me. That will be your best shot at a timely response. But yeah, if anyone has any questions for me, please send me a message and I will get to them eventually. I'm just not so great on the DMs.
Love that. Well, I will make sure I put that in the show notes page. Me and you were texting for this exact reason, but
yeah, we have that. When it goes in the message request, it's gone for a long time.
The worst thing too with Instagram is like, if you are sorting by unread, I notice sometimes it like won't show you past a certain day, and then it suddenly like loads it later. And I'm like, what the heck? This has been sitting there. Yeah. So annoying.
Yeah, I'm embarrassed about my Instagram DM. It's bad. I'm just so bad. I think I still have like 30 or 40 unopened, and I try to get to them, but it's like, keep my kids alive or reply to DMs.
Yeah.
So I think you're doing pick one, and I try to go through them and especially see if it's somebody that needs help or has a question. So I try to, but it's just usually like last on my mind. So, but email, I'll check faster. So
Awesome. Well, I'll put your Instagram and I'll put your email in the show notes page. And you guys, that's always on celestial.fit/podcast. If you're listening first thing on Friday morning, it'll be at the top of that page. If you're listening in the future, just scroll down to the category section. It's alphabetized and you can find Kristin's name there. Not only are you going to see all the links, but there's also a full breakdown of the episode, the topics covered, and episode timestamps. So when you share this with people, you can let them know exactly what stood out to you and when it stood out to you. So you guys can enjoy it together. And I want to say thank you all for tuning in to another episode. And Kristin, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I've loved talking with you.
Me too, and I hope you all have an amazing rest of your day, night, or morning, wherever you are in the world while you're listening to this episode.